Well, hello everyone. This is Ranger Rob, and welcome to the Ranger Rob Country Living Podcast. And without further ado, let me make sure to get Dale Wiley on here. He's partnering up with me tonight. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing well, Ranger Rob. How are you tonight?
Pretty good.
Good.
We're a little disorganized, but we're doing right.
That's
Let me
normal.
get. Yeah, I'm trying to get my screens up here in the right places. Um, So before we get going, I gotta let everybody know you can find our podcast, the Range Rob Country Living Podcast, on Spreaker is our main platform, along with a lot of other platforms. Which, if you go down to our description, we'll show you how to do it. We're also all of our episodes play on Central Oregon Radio and syndicated. Let's see, I think it's every day during the week. So yeah, so check out our podcast there, or always make it to our live one and get involved in the chat. So, and if you do get involved in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what's on your mind, things you might want us to talk about, things like that. So, anyway, so Dale, what kind of trouble you been up to?
Well, just, the usual here, trying to figure out what's going on in our crazy world and try to stay one step ahead of that. Should know better than to try to do that and
Yeah, I
everything.
was
But
gonna.
yeah, I mean, it's just kind of crazy. We had some nice weather today. I got out and I started some lettuce in the garden or in the pots in the greenhouse, which is one of my favorite ways to grow lettuce. And I'd encourage our viewers and listeners to probably check that out. You'd be surprised. You can grow 400 calories of lettuce a day easily in season and everything. And so that's just kind of how it is. Just like I said, I think the big thing is just trying to keep the hammer down on being prepared and what's coming up, in this crazy world, given what's went on in the last week and what continues to go on. I mean, stuff is evolving on a pretty rapid basis right now. And I've seen a
I don't
few
know what
things
you're
just,
worried about. The president yesterday said he was doing a great job, best job ever in a year.
yeah, in a
And
year, like,
he said, compare me to anybody before me that could actually have done as many things as he's done. So, hey, rest easy.
well, that's what they said, and people compared him to um, which is Harrison and Garfield. Well, Harrison died 3 months into office, and Garfield was assassinated. So that bar is pretty low, there in that situation there. But I mean, it's just everything that kind of surrounds this thing that's people have been fixated on and everything. And you had a major company come out today, saying they're not going to mandate their employees take that jab or anything like that. And that would have been Intel, a huge thing there. And so it's like, what have we been doing? What's been going on, type of thing. And, I think we talked a little bit earlier, this inflation thing. And we said, this is not going to be a light switch. This is going to be something that happens over time. And we were at our Fred Meyer's here in Redmond 2 days ago,
Yeah.
which is it's a Kroger store for the people that know of the larger chains and everything like that. And we went back in to get some chicken, and there was like we just get the straight chicken breast usually and everything, and went back, and there was about 3 packs of that, and everything else wasn't. And the price had went up slightly, like 60% over the last 2 weeks when we were in there. It was $2.19 the last
Wow.
time we bought it, and it was $3.49 a pound. Now, so that's a 60% price increase in 2 weeks. There once again a short chain fresh food supply, situation, and then also the frozen foods were criped down. I'd say they were probably only at about maybe 20% capacity of what they normally would be in frozen foods, and then some other minor shortages around there. But what struck me was that price increase. That was just phenomenal. Enough to
Yeah.
piss you off,
I,
really.
yes. Sherry and I want to make sure I make it perfectly clear. We very rarely ever go to Walmart, but Sherry had some clothing she wanted to get there. Anyway, so we went to Walmart. So I went ahead and thought I'd go through the food section and see if I could find anything interesting. While she's looking at blouses or something. Anyway, and actually, it wasn't too bad, but there was sections definitely that was
Yep.
emptied or just it wasn't consistent on every row and every subject, but it certainly wasn't as bad as some of the pictures I've been seeing from other states. So either I hit Walmart at a good time, or I didn't, or they had enough employees to get some of the inventory out. Um, I don't know, but it didn't seem that bad. But Fred Meyer wise, I haven't been there for a while, so I don't know how bad it is. And of course, most of the time I just go to the little grocery store up in Terrebonne, which
Yeah.
is an overpriced grocery store, a local,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's normal. and they're doing. I mean, they look great. So,
Yeah, they
but
have pretty
yeah,
good stuff, and and I think I've seen some of the same pictures that you have because I think we probably follow some of the same people on the different platforms and everything. And we don't have a huge population base in our area here, so those impacts aren't seen at those stores. The ones that are getting stripped out, are in your major urban areas, particularly Southern California and Central California and things like that, where you don't you just don't understand what's going on. Of course, then you got the great train robberies down there in Los Angeles.
I could not believe that. I
Uh,
never heard about it until this week. And it's, I mean, people, if you haven't seen this news, is we have trains that are going through LA, and when they stop, and they're all containers, and a lot of them could be our packages that we've ordered from Amazon, stuff like that. They're literally getting broken into, and
yep.
there's a big heyday of people just breaking into these things, opening these boxes, throwing the boxes right there. In fact, I don't even know how the train even gets through the tracks with that much garbage. And I didn't even know that was going on, and it's like really bad.
Well, and
So
that too, and these criminals that are, excuse me, that are doing this, they're high grading the stuff. And I watched one video of a guy, and he jumped over the fence and went down there, started going through some of this stuff. You found these silly test kits that they're shipping out to everybody. There were some medical supplies, medical goods, prescription medicine dosage type things and everything, and they're just left there because they're of no value to the pirates or anything like that, and so it's just like, well, there's where some of your stuff went and everything. And I mean, and it's I hate to be Union Pacific, and they said they're going to pull out if things don't change and everything else, because they are going to have one hell of a bunch of shipping claims on all that stuff that's been lost like that and everything.
oh
And
yeah.
and just the absurdity of it all is just, is when does this stop?
And it's funny. It's like you don't hear Amazon complaining about it, and they should be. I mean, that's they're all gung ho on being in this new woke community, but they're ones also being victims of it.
Well,
And
they
it's
are
like,
too, and then there's something I saw out there today was is a delivery services DSP or something like that. It's an Amazon affiliate and everything. And basically it was the old, well, we don't want infrastructure and expense and everything to deliver our goods. So we'll hire all these contractors, and we'll blow a bunch of smoke at them and say, this is your own business. This is and then there was a deal there today that one of these places decided to relocate to another, uh, you know, location. And so they texted all their employees and say, yeah, guess what? You're out of a job. We're done, type of thing. Oh yeah, it was just
yeah,
insane, And so, I mean, this stuff they've created this thing, and I think a lot of us, knew, and that was one of the weak spots with Amazon was that delivery process, because if you can't control that, you've got to go to outside contractors and everything like that. There's a lot of variables that you lose control of and everything. And once you do that, and they save themselves a lot of money, and everybody's just gotten used to it. They're so used to it, and they can do that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we just fired, 150 employees. Sucks for them, I guess. We're on to something else.
yeah. So before I forget, since you and I both are on Crooked River Ranch in Oregon, any new news or any interesting things going on in the ranch that we've uh, uh, should bring up? Just because we're here.
Well, I mean, it's the usual type of stuff that's going on. I did, post a couple of things on some local platforms here on that. My wife and I try to walk 4 miles a day around different roads, and we got somebody around here that likes Fireball whiskey. Uh, you can buy these little shooter bottles, 2-shot
Oh,
bottles
I
of
saw
Fireball
that.
whiskey, and
Yeah.
it's just insane. I mean, we picked up 47 of these things in the last 3 days along the roads out here, in about and probably 9 miles of walking and everything. It's kind of a loose area out here as far as law enforcement goes. I mean, they are doing a much better job and everything like that. But you can generally assume that about 1 in every 5 to 6 cars out here is probably an impaired driver and everything. And so that kind of got a little bit of attention from some people. And then of course we have the usual dysfunctions in our private HOA government that goes on almost on a daily basis, type of a thing where nobody can seem to find a problem or find a solution to a problem, and they like calling each other names and fools and this and that and everything. They don't make a hell of a lot of progress, towards solving things. So, you know, outside of that, I weather's been
Also,
beautiful.
another quiet week, normal week at Crooked River
Yeah,
Ranch.
just another normal week. You've got the usual suspects out there flaming each other on on the social media platforms and everything. And it's a lot of it's emotionally based rhetoric is what it is. And then you go in there and you hit them with a little bit of logic and common sense, and they don't know what to do at that point in time because it completely destroys their narrative and everything. It's like, well, I better not say anything because he might know what he's talking about, or and so it just kind of.
Just like I remember when I actually was on. There used to be, I don't know if there's still a Chamber of Commerce here, but I was vice president of it back in 2002, 2001. And it was all kinds of little gossip and power things going on there. And that was before social media.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now
I
I'm
don't have
going,
that.
I could just imagine what it's like now.
Well, and it's just it kind of ebbs and flows and everything. And I mean, social media, it's great and it allows people to communicate, but it just also is one of the most horrible things that have ever been invented and everything. And people are just, you know, I mean, if you wanted to talk to me that way to my face, I might punch you in the nose. What
Yeah.
some of them people do on there and everything. And granted, an HOA, it is a private, deal, but I still feel that they need to conduct themselves, like a city council or a county commission or something like that, and be civil to each other and everything. And we don't get into shouting matches and everything else like that because none of that
Yeah.
accomplishes anything, and it just puts you farther back on there. So, you know, we've been here, we lived here going into our third year now. We've owned property for 5 and everything. I mean, it's the same thing as it was when we first started, and it's just like same story, edition 32 type of a thing. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I
good for
remember back
amusement.
in my 20 years ago, I think there's a big water problem with the guy that owned the place, and there was all kinds of weird stuff going on, especially with the water district. But oh, battle after battle, sue, this, that. It's
Well,
like,
see,
wait a
and
minute,
that's
guys, stop the suing, guys, because that's our money you're wasting.
yeah, and I mean that right now, to me, I don't know. They've got like 3 pending lawsuits out there right now and everything, and one of them is some kind of a breach of confidentiality defamation suit. They're seeking over $900,000 in damages. Okay, this HOA and the entire operation of Crooked River Ranch, their entire budget is $2.6 million a year. Not that much, certainly not enough money for them to be jumping into lawsuits all the time and to have 3 of these lawsuits hanging out here. I'm surprised their insurance company, well, they'll probably just have to recycle through a couple of insurance companies and everything else like that. I've ran and managed businesses 2, 3, 4 times that amount of money. And our mantra was, if we get into one lawsuit, we did something wrong. You've got to be able to sit down at a conference table and solve these problems without giving a bunch of greasy lawyers all your money, because nobody
Yeah,
wins at that
for
point in
sure.
time.
For
You're
sure.
right. It is our money too.
Yeah. So you said you were doing some lettuce planting. What's your incentive there? Just decided like time to get some food going.
Well, yeah, I mean, me, I'm always experimenting. I never tried this last year or anything, and it's my standard lettuce production cycle. It's a loose leaf lettuce. You don't get anywhere really growing head lettuce. You gotta be able to cycle it through and make sure you got plenty on there. We grow a little bit, throw to the chickens, but I grow it in containers. I've got 3-gallon nursery pot containers, and I'll move those up onto our deck this year that has drip irrigation on it. I think I did 7 today and everything.
Wow.
And then I also had
Nice.
some other herbs out there and everything that I did take some cuttings from. I don't know if I'll need them. If not, I'll give them away to people or something like that. But, my idea on the lettuce is we like a good salad. And when we can grow that and you walk out there with a set of scissors, shave off enough to make 2 nice salads and add all the usual stuff to it, you're giving yourself 350, 400 calories a day just off that salad alone and everything. That's pretty good little significant chunk of your daily calories there. So, and it's easy to do, particularly on patio pots like that. Anybody can grow patio pots. And then I'm also shifting some of my herb and spice production over to those pots in order to free up a little bit more space in the beds for a little bit higher production type of a stuff. And then, and I don't know, I've had greenhouses my entire adult life and everything. And if the sun's up and the angle of the sun is that, we got to get out and do something, so
Yep.
we'll see, hopefully it'll come on and be ready to go ahead and put out.
Or some of our listeners, for those that watch the Ranger Rob Country Living videos, I believe tomorrow's video is showing you a more in-depth look at our propagator. So basically, what I wanted to show people how easy it is to grow lettuce in your house.
Yeah.
Just using just a little barrel, you'll be amazed at this little propagator is just rolling over to the sides with so much lettuce, and we can't even eat it all. And so, even though it's this time of year, guys, you could be kicking out a lot of lettuce with hydroponics. And so, so tomorrow's video, if you get a chance to check it, go check that video out, and it'll tell you how I built it, how it works, and how expensive it was to build and stuff. It was so cheap, and it's pretty much the most basics of doing hydroponics that anybody is almost it's a combination of either being the cranking method or the floating rafts. Either one is so easy that anybody could do. And so if you really want to grow some food, whether you're living in an apartment, a townhouse, your car, your RV, you can grow some food, believe it or not. So that's
Well,
the point to the video then.
yeah, and you
And
get a lot better space utilization there too as well. When you're doing
oh,
it
heck yeah.
hydroponically and everything. That's kind of like my pots. I just cram them full type of a thing. And if I get too much and it looks like it's going to bolt on me or something, I'll shave it off and go throw it to the chickens because they love lettuce
Chickens, yeah.
and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
like you said.
that's we're gonna overplant really bad here, but we do it on purpose because we can feed
Oh
the
yeah,
chickens and we can feed the pigs now. And so
yeah,
when you see my NFT systems, and of course Dale Wiley said he was going to come over and visit me like months ago. He's never shown up. Anyway, but when he ever comes over, you'll see I got this giant NFT system that'll be firing up probably in the next month and a half. I'll have so much food. There's no way Sherry and I can even get close to it, but it really helps to supplement the animals and get your feed costs down on the
yeah.
chickens and on the pigs. And or if it's even I can't get to that, I can put in the compost bin. So nothing goes to waste. So that's the
Nothing
cool
goes to
part.
waste, and particularly, when you're able to take, and we do the same thing. We overplant specifically like that. And when I thin out and everything else like that, I mean, the chickens, they'll take that, just convert it into protein for us and everything.
Yep.
And that's basically what livestock is all about. You're taking your plant material and you're turning it into proteins, whether you do it through your chickens or your hogs or whatever like that. And so, yeah, nothing goes to waste. I don't even have a compost pile. Everything kind of goes into the chickens. And if they get kitchen scraps and everything else like that. And, I've got so much stuff out there now. I said, back off on, I said, I don't know what we're going to do with all this stuff. These chickens need to get with the program here a little bit and clean it all out. And, I had some potatoes left over. I just leave those in the bed. They'll rot down and everything else. They'll provide some nutrients to everything else that's going into there and everything. And so, kind of at that point, I'm waiting. Pretty soon we'll be going for the bone meals and some of that other stuff. Wait for it to warm up just a little bit. We're gonna make some compost tea, start getting some compost tea on those beds, get a little microbial activity going on a little bit. Went back through a bunch of my pictures on my phone and looked at last year's garden and the year before that. It's like, oh wow, yeah, you kind of come up with some ideas there, and you realize what worked and what didn't work and everything. And so, kind of at that point, and you look at this thing and it's like, yeah, do I need to add more bed? No, I don't. I can't. I can barely take care of what I got here. That's one of the considerations is, knowing your limits and knowing what you can take care of and what you can't, and don't get too carried away. This is coming from a guy that has gotten too carried away too many times in his life and various things. And, I did a little truck garden thing there a couple of years ago. Well, that was actually about back in 13 over in the valley at our place over there. And, it was just like I ended up with 2.5 acres of produce. You have no idea how much work 2.5 acres of produce is, even with tractors and stuff like that. It just,
Yeah.
And really it was like, I wanted to pick it all, have people come out and pick it. I thought, man, people are going to get back to the earth and everything else like this. Some did, but the majority of them just wanted to come out and pick it off a table up by the greenhouse and everything. And that's a whole different production scenario. You'd have to have more bodies and everything else like that. And I wasn't into that. And so, basically, I think I got my seed cost back out of it and maybe a little bit of my water cost back out of it. And then, probably sometime in September, I just got a hold of the local gleaners and I says, just start sending people out here. This stuff's, going to go to rot and take care of it. So, I learned my lesson then about getting
I have
carried
to
away.
laugh as I got this one section of my property towards the front where people drive by and they can see it. And I notice people drive by on our dirt road a lot slower now because I've got the pigs in there. So a lot of people drive slower so they can see the pigs, because when a car goes by,
Yeah.
the pigs run up to the fence. Well, now they're also noticing that they're tearing up the hell out of this beautiful grass we had. It's probably, the size of that grass that's being all chewed up right now is the size of 2 lots in Mesa.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get a comparison, it's just over 100 feet long and almost 40 feet wide. And we got the pigs tearing it up. It looks like that a couple of meteors have been hitting our that yard, the way that, the pigs are tearing this thing up. And I know the people are probably going by going, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that to that grass. And what they don't realize is we're intentionally really letting the pigs chew up as much of that as possible. And it's really hard to watch
Yeah.
because
Well,
it was gorgeous.
that's what pigs do. Pigs, they root. They like doing that and everything. And it's kind of interesting, as you kind of get
Exactly.
into the whole homesteading and the heading towards permaculture and these types of things. You realize what a waste grass really is, unless it's
Yep.
made into hay. Okay, if grass is made into hay, then that's good, because we're going to convert it into a meat protein or something later on. That's just part of the process. But in particular, if you live down in Mesa and Phoenix and those areas, you know the massive expanses of grass out there that everybody has, that they irrigated with potable water because they weren't able to, get a level 3 wastewater treatment system put into place, which happens in, a few others. But Las Vegas, Phoenix, and everything else, I mean, they just had this massive amount of grass, and the amount of water that's wasted. My son works for the water department here in Redmond, and their water usage jumps by almost 5 to 7 million gallons a day when people start irrigating here for grass and everything else. And you really got to look at this thing. I think we've talked about this a little bit before. Putting new water facilities in, new treatment facilities, new wells, and everything else. These people need to convert over to the xeriscape type of a situation. And, really, and I owned landscape maintenance business company for a number of years. I also took care of the Nike facility in Beaverton and some of this other stuff. And you got all this grass, and people go out and they mow this grass, and they put it in a bag, and then they dump it, in a container or something, or in the back of a truck. Then they take it to a dump and they dump it out again. Grass is 90% water. Why are you even bagging it up and everything? If you fertilize grass, 50% of the nitrogen that you put on comes off in the first 3 weeks if you bag the grass and everything. And so in our business, and I was involved with some of the first technology as far as recycling mowers and everything go. I did a lot of prototype testing when I worked for Toro back in those days, to where you mow this and you process it inside the mower and everything, and it drops back down. It looks good. It doesn't create a mess. And we put that back in there, and you eliminate this huge amount of work and everything else. And so it's kind of, you see these pickups going around piled up with grass and everything. It's like, why are you doing that? I mean, you're hauling around a bunch of little bit of minor cellulose and water, type of a thing. And so that kind of, that goes back into the whole thing. These cities and all these huge areas are just completely irresponsible with the way the water is handled. We took a little walk around the wetlands out at Crooked, or on the Crooked River out at Prineville this past week, and we're pretty familiar with those. We actually built some of those facilities and everything. We also had one close to our place in the valley. It's kind of nice to see how that effluent water is treated. I mean, it's because they have to and everything. It's not because they want to and everything. But, we're a water wasting society. And at the cost of establishing new sources of water, that's going to be a problem in the years to come for sure.
Yeah. What I'm looking forward to is when I get this field converted. So as soon as it warms up a little bit, we're pulling them pigs out of there, putting them in our backfield so they can have a heyday without, there's no grass or anything back there. And then we're going to bring in some soil and stuff, but I'm hoping, this is my ultimate goal, and I probably will never do it again, but I want to grow a large amount of corn. And it's the perfect place for corn. And it's going to be so, the ground there is going to be so fertile that we should make a killing there if I can get the corn started early enough. Anyway, so my ultimate goal is really good corn, but it's also going to be enough room to do a lot of plants that need room. So, like your squashes and your cucumbers, the things that need, or pumpkins, they take a lot of room, but I want to do it not on the ground. We're going to literally do the whole thing in fabric weave. And so we don't have to deal with the weeds. So it's going to be costly. I know I'm going to be just belly aching about the cost of the weave and all that stuff, but I just got to do it to see if we could really make a killing on corn. And we may find after that, like, okay, we're never going to grow that much again. But this year, I got a feeling everybody's going to be our friend, because when we say, hey, guys, we got extra corn, get your butt up here.
Yeah, corn's another one of those, plants. It's an interesting plant. Corn's actually a grass and everything like that. And so, corn, there was a lot of the farmers around and everything, and over in the valley where we used to live, some of the guys I knew that farmed, the corn, you would follow corn with wheat, mainly because corn fixes nitrogen in the soil. And so you would you would have these hellacious bumper crops of wheat come off a field that had had corn in it the previous year. And then depending on the contracts the individuals had, they might go in it with beans or something else like that. And so it was kind of a corn bean, or what had been a wheat bean corn rotation over a 3-year time. I drove by the field a couple weeks ago when we were over in the valley there, and with the fluctuation with the processors and everything else, and of course they're in the process of screwing the farmers every chance they get and everything. Sure. They pulled these bean contracts and everything, and the corn contracts from these guys because it was just downsized. And he says, okay, well, the hell with that. I'm putting grass seed back in it, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Corn will give you 2 years per stalk is basically kind of what everybody is after. Depending on how you're going to water corn too, you might want to be looking at some drip tape. Maybe it would probably be the most economical way to do that.
Yeah, that's actually what we'll be doing.
Yeah, because I've used the drip tapes before, and they're kind of they're okay and everything else, but there again, I don't like bending over anymore, and so I learned that a few years ago.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Jack says, "Good evening, Dale and Rob." And we saw you earlier, and it's always nice to have Jack here. So thank you very much, Jack.
Good evening, Jack.
And, he's been roaming around. He's down in Arizona right now. He's been I think he thinks he's an RVer, but I don't think he's got an RV yet. I think he's just kind of cruising around, checking things out, visiting some other YouTubers. Like he came up to visit us. So that was really interesting. It must be interesting to go to somebody that's doing a YouTube channel and go see their facilities, and then because you've seen everything on camera, to see the real thing is it'll look different. So anyway, it was kind of interesting when we had Jack here. So some of the pet peeves I've had going on this week. I know we got the ranch covered. We're gonna have to have you pull something out of your hat too. Do you still got that?
Oh yeah. Hang on a second.
Yeah, we'll do that in a minute. The news today we're talking about has been
we've got
the news conference yesterday was just something where you just want to scream and yell. And real life flip, how are you guys? It's somebody you know. Do you know Vander and Lola says, "Hi, Grandpa Dale."
Yeah, hi kiddos. That's my son Ryan and my 2 grandkids there over in the valley and everything.
Grandpa's a TV star now. Next time they come to your house, you have to give them autograph. He's like, give out autographs now from Grandpa.
Yeah,
so, way cool. What other weird thing was going on this week? Besides the fact that Russia's ready to take over Ukraine, but they've been ready to do that for years now.
Well, they have. Our fearless leader said, "Just go ahead and do it anyway." So I mean, here's a pass.
Let's see. Jack says he's been meeting with Bob Wells. Oh
yeah.
That is. Oh, please, Jack. That word, Bob Nation. I used to call it cheap RV living. Brian with Adventure Van Man. I haven't met him, but I'm sure he's fine. And tomorrow, Stan with Sasnak. Is that what they call themselves? Anyway, Bob Wells. He looks like Santa Claus, and he's
I've seen.
We always, he lives in a van, and I think he's a professional poop in the bucket kind of guy. And, he's telling everybody to get out here, live freedom, live in a van, poop in a bucket. Jack, I'm just kidding. I mean, everybody has their purpose, and he means well, and that's his world. And some people, by the way, living out of a van and things, there's some situations where I'm thinking, I've seen where it's actually for example, I'll give you an example. I've seen him do interviews with like women that maybe have been divorced, or they lost their husband or something. They have a fixed income and they're just miserable, and they're in the cities. They can't afford everything, and they're just going into poverty. And some of them got wise and just bought a van or bought something like that and started traveling, caught up with the what we call the Bob Nation kind of people, and found a way to live comfortable, to live
Yep.
feasibly and within their budget, and and a lot less stress. That is where this really comes in handy. Where people living in RVs, traveling, not the homeless RV ones. I'm not talking about that, but people using RVs and vans and stuff to just live and make a budget. When you're on a fixed income of 1,000 a month, you can't stay in an apartment. You can't rent a
No.
house. How can you have quality of life? Well, if you could do what Bob Wells is doing, um, you could travel, go to BLM land, be with people that are like minded for safety, the whole works. um, there's a place for that, and so I got to give
Absolutely.
him credit. So that's the credit I'll give Bob Wells, but the rest of it is he's like a giant overaged hippie as far as I'm concerned, and but he is touching the worlds of people that do need him, but he's also influencing people that don't need him. And so
Yeah, you talk about the poop in the bucket thing and everything, and I've encountered, some people locally here on the ranch that, and didn't have an expansive RV or anything else like that. They had a nice, pickup and a, I don't know, 28-foot trailer or something like that. Um, yeah, and then they just decided to go ahead and go this van thing, and they're older than I am and everything. And my thought was there, I mean, I like my space a little bit. And we've got a 25-foot travel trailer and everything. And it's okay. It does, but I mean, it's basically ran into a snowstorm over in the southeast desert there last year. And we were confined to that thing for the better part of a day and everything. And I didn't have my recliner and some other stuff. And I didn't really enjoy that all that much. But anyway, this guy, he went and he took a van, and I think he did it because his son had come up with a Sprinter van, but he was some kind of a techie and, had an unlimited amount of money to work with. Anyway, he built this van, and him and his wife do it. It's the poop in a bucket type of a thing, and so I'm like, more power to you. The day that my 25-foot travel trailer, that either that I can't make it work or it doesn't work for some reason or another, that's the end of my RV and days right there.
yeah, now, Sherry and I, we did full timing twice in our lifetime. It was great, but we also have a fifth wheel. So
Yeah,
that's like a house. That's like a house on wheels, and that's why we used the fifth wheel, because they're very
yeah,
comfortable.
but it's got its
And we
own
had the
set,
opportunity.
it's got its own set of things that you got to look at. You absolutely have to research the hell out of that thing to make sure that that's the right decision, for you and your significant other, or however the thing's going to work. Because I mean,
Yeah,
those are commitments and everything. And no matter what, I've got close family members that are full-time RVers and everything like that, and they're doing fine. They're in their first year of it and everything. But I like having my base to come back to, and
me too.
realizing that I'm looking 65 in later on this year and everything, and that or being full time is not, I know I've probably got 5 to 8 pretty good years left, and where I feel energetic enough and everything to do it. But at some point in time, I want to be able to, just return to the home base and everything,
Yeah.
and
Well,
hang out
we
there.
still have our fifth wheel, so we're kind of thinking about when Sherry gets ready to retire, um, that maybe we'll locate it down in Arizona or something like that, and leave it down there. And then when the
Yeah,
and change our scenario up here with the animals, and then go down during the cold time here, and our daughter's down there, and so we just use that as a base to go see her for 3 or 4 months, and then come back up here, but always have our base. So
yeah. No, I
um,
think that's a great
and by
idea. I mean,
then
every time
and by then we may
I
not want to be keeping pigs and chickens as long as we have. It's like, hey, if I want a pig, when I'm doing that, I'll get one that's a feeder,
yeah.
grow them up to full size, have them butchered, and then go to Yuma.
Yeah, and I mean that, every time it snows around here, and I mean, You think these people that go to Arizona, and here in the next few days or so, a friend of mine, he's getting ready to take off to go down to Arizona and spend probably a month and a half, 2 months down there. He'll send me a picture, every now and then. It's like, yep, I'm on the way. I'm going to Arizona. It's a little cold. He lives down outside of Medford and everything. Like, okay, rub it in a little bit, type
Yep.
of thing, and all. And so, we're probably looking at, kind of a same type of a situation, doing a couple of winters down there or something. But me right now, feeling where our world is and everything, I'm a little hesitant to start putting a lot of miles between myself and my base here and everything. And I mean,
I feel the same way. It's
yeah,
we full timed in 2006 um, time zone for about a year, and then we got a full time again around 2015 for about a year. Just because we're just lucked out that way. And each time, which you're almost talking about a decade between each time, um, it's changed. It's
yeah,
not the same. Um, Not only is it RVing, I mean, changed a lot as far as you can't be spontaneous anymore because I mean,
no,
there's too many people doing it. The cost of everything's gone up, um, and more people are doing it. So a lot of times you can't even go where you want to go, and the cost of the RV parks is you may as well have a house. You're paying the same amount,
yeah. I mean,
and so
it's kind of
yeah,
interesting. I mean, we haven't done, to that scale type of there. I mean, we get out, the plan is I think we're going to try and be out, so probably a good 12 days a month, here starting in May and everything, depending on get through the greenhouse season, get everything out into the gardens. It's all timed irrigation and everything. My grandson can do some stuff, but our number is $150 a day right now with the RV and everything, and that's just the cost. That's just the cost of diesel and the RV park and some food and everything else. That doesn't even factor in anything. It's an older trailer, an older pickup, paid for and everything like that. So we don't have any costs there. And this is not a $500,000 motorhome and everything. And we'll get stuck in an RV park next to some of these motorhomes, and these guys pull in there and they hit their button and their little leveling things come down and the satellite dish pops up and the guy's pouring himself a cocktail. He's sitting there 20 minutes later, just happy as a clam, type of thing. But I think right now, because of the way the world or my perception of the world's situation is that we're not going to get more than about 300 miles max from home right now, and that my whole theory
I'm
on
about
that one is I need to be able to make it home on two tanks of diesel with a little bit of spare to go
yep,
and everything. And I'm big on security and self-defense and everything like that. And so that carries with it materials and items that you have to carry with you and
yep.
everything. And so there's just the whole thing is like, how fast can I get home if things went sideways on you or something like that.
For sure.
And so that's kind of everything we've got looks like it's going to be contained within 300 miles this year. So I feel pretty good about that. I can make that in half a day usually if I had to, type of a thing. But there's just too much uncertainty out there right now. um, and I mean, to illustrate that, we were out once last year. We went up and stayed up at Cottonwood Canyon, and we came up from somewhere else. Anyway, and I called a RV park there in Sherman County, and the guy was very helpful. He said, where are you coming from, all this and that? And he goes, well, I just want to tell you, there's no fuel for 100 miles on this road between Biggs Junction and Madras, which is about 100 and some odd miles. And I'd let my tanks get a little lower than I wanted to, and I hadn't thrown in 2 5-gallon cans of diesel and everything else. And I said, I can make Madras okay and everything like that. But I mean, and that's not uncommon, in our area. I mean, you can go 150, you can go 200 miles with no fuel easily over into the deeper parts of the state and
Yep.
everything. And quite frankly, nothing guarantees the fuel is going to be there when you get there anyway.
And nowadays, I just
Yeah.
noticed the other day our Chevron over by Sherry's ran out of gas the other day.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's
and
fairly common for the one in Terrebonne to do that and
I'm at,
everything.
no, it wasn't that one. It was the one over by Sherry's over by Bymart in
Oh really?
Redmond.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't seen them run out of gas before, but it was like, and it could be just that someone didn't, they didn't get a truck in or something, and weather could have held back or something. But yeah, you can't make much
Well,
money with
that's
empty
no, and that
tanks.
and see that, and that's one of your short chain supply products right there. I mean, this stuff's all coming out of Portland, so excuse me, it's an easy 3.5 4 hour drive, and the mess that they come through over Mount Hood and everything. And I used to drive fuel truck and trailers like that. And there's nothing more annoying than slinging chains a couple of times on a day. And basically, I mean, you're gonna make one delivery a day in a shift like that and everything. And a gas station will go in there, they'll dip the tanks, they've got the way to make the calculations as to how much they've got in there. They order it, they've got to be able to take a complete truck and trailer load at one time because that's just the way they all do it. And if something screws up and you miss that by 8 hours, you'll walk right through whatever you've got in there, and that's what you end up happening. And then plus the fact the trucking industry is in absolute turmoil right now, that
Yeah,
the amounts of money that these guys are getting paid, there's a lot of talk out there about jab mandates and everything else like that. And basically the guys that are delivering the fuel, you're out there, you're pulling hose, you're out in the weather, you're doing this and that. It's not a pleasant one to do. And they're switching over to the box trucks and everything, where all they have to do is pull up to a dock there and everything and unload it, and they don't have to get wet. And answering Jack's questions there, no, there are no bulk fuel depots in our area. It all comes into Portland or Eugene. There are some over in Eugene. We're about equidistant between the two. Stuff comes into Eugene on a pipeline, basically, and there's a tank farm there. And that pretty much handles everything to the southern part of the state, the south coast down into Medford and those areas. And everything for us is coming over Mount Hood out of the terminals on the Willamette River in Portland, where it comes in by barge and some of that other stuff. And so, we're kind of at the mercy of the transportation system, in all those situations there. And it doesn't take much to screw it up.
yeah. So what was it? I was going to ask you a question. So to make sure that we're covering our subject today, did you have? I know you talked about shortages a little bit, and you talked a little bit and that. Did you cover all the things you wanted to talk about? Because I know I kind of cut you off when you were talking about it.
I mean, as far as the shortages go, that was some stuff I was seeing, in the grocery lines. Now, I did go to Wilco, our farm supply store, here the other day to get a couple of things, and for some odd reason, the grass shelves or the grass seed was completely empty. Okay, and I don't understand that. Maybe it's an inventory type of a thing. Certainly, the
Yeah,
Willamette
I was looking
Valley.
for grass seed the other. Yeah, I was looking for grass seed too the other day, and I was like, oh, maybe they just don't stock it this time of year or something. So
No, that's not the
I thought it
deal.
was me. Hmm.
That's something that's usually stocked at all times and everything. And I mean, your sales are bigger on it, as you come into spring and everything else like that. But we're in the
Yeah.
grass seed capital of the world. We should not be having a shortage, of grass seed or anything. And that's a relatively minor thing, because there again, we're talking about an ornamental product. This stuff goes, into the distribution system everywhere like that. So, shortages that I did see are going to be some of these things that you would expect to come in on containers, the exported items and everything else like that. Um, and so, it's like you just kind of deal with that there. And you see Ryan asking, what about fertilizer inputs for farmers this season? That's just,
That's what.
that's
Buy a pig.
that is just insanity right now. I mean, and
I know.
some of the numbers I've seen, Well, I watched one video the other day on YouTube, and these guys, follow their farming operation, and they were sitting in the shop doing their budgets and their plans for this coming spring, and it was the dad and the two sons and everything, and he had the spreadsheet or the output from their QuickBooks there. And they spent $85,000 on fertilizer inputs last year and everything, and and chemicals, and they'd already went out and got their price quotes based upon probably the same amount of usage and everything. They didn't increase, acreage or anything else like that. And they were looking at $161,000 this year. So easily double, 50% more, doubled. So farmers are going to look at that and they're going to say, I can't afford to fertilize everything at that rate. So what do? Because farmers used to have to go to the bank and grovel and plead your case and get operating money from the banks and everything else. But the banks don't want to do that anymore. They want, too much collateral and everything else. And so, farming and getting an economy of scale up there a little bit has allowed these guys to be a little bit more self-financing and everything. But you can't throw a doubling of your inputs in there, and these guys aren't able to say, okay, well, my inputs doubled, so I'm raising my price. Now they're producing a commodity. They have to take that the price gives them, that the market gives them, regardless of the cost of your input. So hopefully that gap in between them there is sufficient that you're still going to be able to make a profit, or you're going to grow less ground, and that means you're going to make less money. So this is a no-win situation for agriculture, and the fact is that the producer is the one that usually gets screwed in this deal anyway. The middleman is the one that makes all the money on this thing. And I follow a guy that's basically ranching in Wyoming right now, and he's basically completely changing his style of operation, going away from a cow-calf operation, selling the calves and hoping you make enough money to pay your bills and everything, to reducing the size of the herd and going direct to the consumer with the product. It's the only way you can survive.
And that's one of the things we've been pushing on our channel is start buying local people. For example, you don't have to be like super local. Like Sherry and I have totally converted over to Butcher Box, but there's a whole bunch of other ones. There's local ones called Sisters Meats and all that stuff where I can order all of our meats from our local farmers, which helps them. They don't have to deal with all this BS with the government and all this stuff when they can sell their products through a distributor locally. And then we can order it online and it comes to you in great shape. And a lot of times I'm hearing that they can buy their beef cheaper now, the actual beef itself. And so they're competitive with anything we're seeing in the big box stores. And so I can tell you one thing, my freezer looks beautiful, and it's because of Butcher Box.
Yeah, ours too. We're the same way.
Oh, and the meat is like that. You can't beat grass fed beef. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And if you don't believe that's really true, order one box from Butcher Box, eat that for a month or so, and then go to Costco and go buy yourself a couple of New York steaks or whatever, or wherever you get your meat now, and try it. And you'll realize, one is you spend pretty much the same amount of money for the price, and two, you'll find this mouth-watering meat that even your New York steaks, your sirloins, all of them are just gorgeous. And so, Sherry and I are totally convinced. We buy all of our beef and buy all of our pork now from Butcher Box. And I've used some other ones too, and they've been good too. But Butcher Box has just been so delicious and so affordable. And I know I'm helping local or closer in farmers. And because the old production methods we're using that are having all this problem with fertilizer, that kind of farming needs to be analyzed and changed and probably get it more into permaculture. And if you do that, then we can start buying all of our food locally. And so that's
what it's going to take. The consumers like yourself and myself and everything else, buying at a lower level like that is going to allow these guys. And I mean, it's just like the guy that I follow there in Wyoming. I mean, rather than him going to this thing, and I do this all, I used to ranch cattle, and, I know what the money is involved and everything else. And so they can do less basically with less cattle and make more money by cutting out these big packing houses. I mean, we see the trucks going up and down the highway here there's a sale about every other Monday up here at Madras, about 26 miles north of us. Yes, it's not bad cattle and everything. We source all our meat locally from a rancher here he's outside of Redmond over here. And then you've got your CSAs, your community sustainable agriculture, where you can buy shares in vegetables and get a box of vegetables every week. So that alternative is open to people that can't grow or are limited in what they can grow. And so the cost is you're cutting out the distributor, you're cutting out the trucking, you're cutting out a whole lot of stuff, and you're getting a product that's much better. Because basically, given the prices that agricultural producers have had to deal with, economy of scale is everything. And to answer Jack's question, there is an alternative fertilizer source. Not really. I mean, your NPK, your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is the backbone. That's what you need. There are no economical ways to deliver the amounts that you need in the form that you need, other than a bulk fertilizer like that. On that kind of a scale, you drop down in size a little bit, and then there are things you can do. You can start working with soil structures. You can start working with compost teas and permaculture along this whole thing, and you can produce a hell of a lot more off a smaller amount of ground and everything. And so I think that's going to become pretty key here pretty soon, because the pinchers are being put down on the local producers, and it's going to be very hard, particularly for these protein producers and everything, to do this. A lot of the protein producers also have to grow your own hay. You have to do that in order, and so there again, higher cost of inputs, maybe less. Just not a lot of good scenarios out there right now on that front.
No,
buy local.
We definitely got to change our practices for sure, and
Absolutely.
And that's what we do in our channel, is we're showing everybody on 5 acres. I could literally create so much food, including animals and food, just by using some different techniques, or vegetables, I should say, and more than that, we could, for ourselves. I could literally sell it and make a living if I really, really wanted to, but it's way too much work.
Oh, the amount of work that's involved there is.
But that's only 5 acres.
Yeah.
So imagine all these people with 5 acres that could produce, or even get into a commercial mode, how much food they could produce for the local area and make a living. I'd be happy to pay my farmer right down the road and buy his beef, or buy his some of his vegetables. And then
you keep those dollars local. It's a better
all it
value.
is a changing the scenario and changing your mindset. And so, and the reason I'm talking so fast is we're almost out of time. In fact, we are out of time. Just when it really starts getting interesting, right? So, first of all, Dale, I want to thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Rob.
And last week, I got so busy last week, I was like, I'm not going to do a podcast. I couldn't get her done. But anyway, I want to thank everybody who has joined us this week in the comments, and we'll be back here next week on Thursdays. We try to shoot for Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and I think I got everything. So guys, thank you very much for watching. We got to scoot. So see you later, everybody. Take care.
Thank you all. Have a good week.
Thank you very much for watching our video. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Thanks.